Welcome to our extended panel. Today we have Devin Barrington-Ward, who is with the Black Futurists Group, a progressive. We have Cody Hall, Republican strategist, as well as Greg Bluestein, politics reporter with the AJC. Gentlemen, thank you so much for staying for this extended edition of the panel. One thing that we did not get to during the show were the travel bans that were enacted this week. President Trump enacted a travel ban during his first term, and we're seeing it again this term. Devin, let's start with you. What type of impact is that going to have on the population here in Georgia?
Well, one, I think the travel bans this time around, he's learned some lessons because it took a first travel ban, a second travel ban, and then finally a third travel ban that was actually able to stand up in court. So these are going to be challenged legally. The basis for the legal challenges will shift from what they were under his previous administration to now really the administration needing to prove justification for why certain countries are on this list. Because, for example, the terrorist attack that took place in Boulder, Colorado recently, that individual was from Egypt, and they're not on the list. And so we're going back to the situation where we're saying that maybe the policy may meet the legal standard, but doesn't meet the standard in the court of public opinion. And I think right now there's a lot of backlash from communities, particularly independents, who are like, I didn't sign up for this when I was voting for Donald Trump.
Cody, do you agree with that?
Look, I think that these travel bans are addressing a serious issue that we're seeing. The immigration crisis we had under Joe Biden was not just because of the southern border. It was also people coming in from all parts of the globe, and especially with some of the countries on this latest series of travel bans, these are failed states that whenever they grant visas to people, they are not normally in regular communication with the American government about who they are, where they're going, how long they're staying, and that presents a serious public safety issues for Americans across the country. So I think that this is the right move. We'll see how it continues to evolve, if they add other countries or not. But I think it goes back to too many Americans under President Biden did not feel safe. And I think that that's one of the things that President Trump is trying to address, is making sure that whether it's at the southern border, which we've seen record low crossings under his administration, or individuals coming from other parts of the globe, that if they pose a significant public safety threat to the American people, that's going to be his first priority, to make sure that they're not allowed in.
To me, this also epitomizes the Trump flood the zone strategy. When Donald Trump announced his travel ban back in 2017, it was the singular moment. Congressman John Lewis, then House candidate John Ossoff went to the airport. It was this moment that lived on. It was all over the media, and now it's one of many. There's an uproar, but it's not quite the same sort of uproar we saw way back when in 2017, when this first travel ban was enacted, when it felt like it was dominated the headlines, because there's a lot of other things in the news right now too.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of Donald Trump's strategy. He thrives in chaos, but the American people does not. And so it's in some ways, there's so much attention that's being focused and divided in so many different places, because as a progressive, it feels like a million bad things are coming out of the White House every day. And so when you have so many things that he knows that are going to cause people to be in an uproar, it's how he's not able to really be pinned down on one particular thing, because progressives have to do, and Democrats in general have to do, a harder job, because they have to focus on 10 bad things, as opposed to, when Republicans were really able to focus on 2 or 3. And from a messaging perspective, it's helpful.
I want to ask you guys about tariffs. It's a buzzword. Things could change by right now, right? But the most recent tariff, the steel tariffs, is that going to have an impact on our industry here, any of our industries here?
It's already having an impact. The Georgia Chamber of Commerce, which as a progressive, I shouldn't be actually quoting them, but the Georgia Chamber of Commerce is saying that it's costing the ports $4 to $6 million each week. Again, those are the example of the kind of business-minded Republicans breaking away with MAGA, because that's not what they signed up for. Independents who work at the ports, who are bringing in all of this material and steel, that's not what they signed up for, this job instability situation that they feel like they're in.
Now, Cody, we did see some, I would say, pushback from the first round of tariffs, which created a 90-day pause, correct? Is this tough love, or is this just not the right way to go?
I mean, look, personally, I don't love tariffs as an economic tool to spur economic growth one way or the other. However, I think the president has approached this, and his administration has approached this in the right way of, if these tariffs can be used as a negotiating tool to bring other countries to the table to negotiate fairer trade deals for the American people, I'm all for it. What I think the danger is that in the long term, we need to cut a lot of these deals quick so that you don't see some of the downward pressure on job growth, on business revenue that could potentially lead to worse economic outcomes in the long term. So I kind of separate it into two things. In short term, if we can make some deals, great. But in the long term, let's be very mindful of the impact on tariffs, or that tariffs may have on small businesses across the country.
And Greg, that is something that I've heard other politicians echo. Cody, you're not a politician, but I've heard other politicians echo that. On the politics side of this, though, looking into the races this year, looking into the races next year, public opinion can obviously change by 2026. But what do you think, what impact do you think this will have on public opinion?
Yeah, we don't know what the number one issue in next year's election will be quite yet, but I can bet it'll be the economy. It's been the economy for decades now in Georgia politics and national politics. Immigration is important, public safety is important, but in the last election, the number one issue by far in Georgia, according to our polls and every other major poll, was the economy. And so if the tariffs start another a recession or an economic downturn, like some economists and even some Trump allies are predicting, that could bode really terribly for Republicans. And you're already seeing Democratic messaging try to capitalize on that.
But to the piece about the Democratic messaging, as a progressive, I do have to be a little hard on the Democratic Party, because I'm not necessarily seeing anything that indicates that they can take advantage of the moment, right? I think we are organizing voters way too late. We can't just lean on the energy that happened in those town hall meetings where people are upset. I didn't see the party out there organizing people, giving people precinct lists, talking to folks so that way they can have a neighborhood by neighborhood electoral strategy, because it's not just going to be messaging that's going to carry people over the finish line. You've got to have a strategy for how you're going to win on the ground. And right now, I'm not seeing that from the Democratic Party in Georgia.
Well, you know what? Maybe the DPG will see this segment
Maybe.
take your advice.
I hope they don't, right?
On that note, I want to thank you gentlemen for coming in. We truly appreciate it. You can catch the Georgia Vote every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. We'll see you then.